Hey, how's it going everyone? It is Only here. Welcome back to another video course as always. So PlayStation VR is probably close to about 3 years now on the market, and as we're kind of coming up to 3 years, cause yeah, it will make 3 years come this October, I figured I'd take this chance to kind of go over all the games that I own and kind of give like my personal recommendations, kind of like my favorite VR games. And yeah, I just figured it'd be a good time, especially since we're on like the cusp of like a lot of great VR games coming out, like No Man's Sky, The Walking Dead Onslaught, and Battlewick from Servios, as well as like Iron Man VR. Just yeah, it seems like a good kind of quiet point right now to kind of go over everything that I've played personally and what I've liked overall as of July 2019 and almost August. So before I get into the list, I do want to say that this list won't necessarily be like in ranking order. That's just frankly because whenever I play VR, a lot of times it's because I'm in different moods. A lot of this isn't really like comparable in my opinion, so I'm just going to get my personal favorites without having to worry about any ranking. As well as like if any games are not on this list, is this because I haven't played them or I just didn't like them as much. So yeah, without further ado, I guess I'm going to go into my first game. So yeah, the first game I'm going to recommend here is Beat Saber. Now, Beat Saber is one of my favorite PSVR games, just frankly because it's so replayable. It's music, which is probably the one medium I like more than games, because music is just life, honestly. Yeah, they continue to add it with free updates. They just got a free update and added like 3 new songs this past week, and overall there's like a lot of content to it and just a lot of replayability, and it's just a blast to play. It's probably my most replayed VR game easily, and it's just one of those VR games that isn't necessarily going for realism, but it's just so, I don't know, captivating while you're playing it because you gotta really focus. It's such a good game. Honestly, a lot of my friends that don't have VR but do want VR probably want it because of Beat Saber. So yeah, it's definitely probably like the system seller of VR for a lot of people, at least that I know right now, and probably the most standout Gen 1 VR game, I'd say. Alright, going to my second game, I'm going to talk about Dirt Rally. Dirt Rally is actually one of the more underrated games I've kind of noticed on just, yeah, online in terms of when people talk about PSVR games and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's one better racing game out there, but Dirt Rally to me offers that kind of realism and kind of just, it's not the prettiest game in the world. I mean, obviously it's like really not as like clear as something like Wipeout, which I'm about to mention, but the game's just very calming. I bought it for full price and absolutely loved it, and then it eventually went down in sale like the next month, but I still like am happy I bought it because it was just that good. And yeah, it's still a nice relaxing experience. I don't see a lot of people mention enough. To me, what sold me on it was like the gameplay, so I'll try to show gameplay off here, and if you guys like that sort of thing, yeah, check out Dirt Rally. I mean, a lot of times you can find it on sale, maybe like once or twice a year for $10, so if you want to get that sale, just look out for sales like that in the future. But honestly, it's really fun. If you're into racing games, this is a no-brainer. So yeah, I mentioned another VR game, and yeah, Wipeout VR is honestly probably one of the most impressive VR games there are out there. The thing about Wipeout is that it's 3 games in one, so it definitely has probably the most content out of any game in VR. Besides maybe replayable multiplayer games, it's definitely up there in terms of single player, and Wipeout can be played multiplayer. It's literally a complete package. So yeah, you get 3 games in one. The thing is, it's not even only impressive because of how much content there is. The game overall is just very optimized for the base PS4. Like when you're playing it on your TV, that they actually had to downscale it for VR, which is kind of the opposite for most games. So this game looks really clear in the headset. Honestly, if there's one thing that could just show you the future of VR in terms of graphics and smoothness and just how fast you can go, Wipeout VR is probably like the biggest technical showcase there is at the moment in terms of how like VR will go in the future. That game kind of feels like a next-gen VR game in terms of visuals and just knowing what Sony's probably going to do next time around with their second headset. I can't wait to see if we could play Wipeout Omega Collection on it and see how much better it looks, and just, yeah man, add a better FOV and that game's going to look amazing. Also, I recommend playing that game with like all the comfort settings off if you can handle it, and it's just like a blast to play. So, Wipeout Omega Collection, definitely the best racer on the PS4, and yeah, definitely recommend it. I mean, the game in general before you even played in VR is also amazing, so yeah, it should be a no-brainer to buy anyway. The last digital VR game I do want to mention here is definitely Superhot. Superhot is probably one of those games where you've heard of like the base game, and yeah, when you play it in VR, it does seem like it's definitely made for VR. The thing about Superhot, if you haven't heard, is that time moves when you do, and just that core concept alone in VR just makes it so much better when you actually can move your hands and you're moving in the real kind of space. Yeah, Superhot, it's definitely not like obviously the most graphically intensive game there is, but man, it's so simple, it's so fun. And yeah, it's not the longest game in the world, but it's definitely probably like one of my go-to showcase games for PSVR, in terms of like what you can do in terms of like having a fun kind of game where you use your hands. I guess the better way to say that is probably like one of my more showcaseable games with the moves, I guess. So yeah, Superhot VR, probably in my top 3 favorite VR games, honestly. And yeah, you definitely gotta pick it up for like 20-25 bucks. It's definitely a really good game. Play for the campaign, there's a lot of replayable missions and stuff. It's just, it feels like it was made for VR in a way. So just, yeah, give it a chance if you haven't had it. One of the top 3 best games you can get in VR, probably on any headset, probably at least top 5 or something. So definitely recommend Superhot VR. Moving over to physical games, this is where I have a lot of the good ones, especially one that just came out recently, Blood and Truth. Blood and Truth is like, it impressed me a lot, to be honest. Like, the people that made this game were the people that did PSVR Worlds, which was pretty impressive for launch day. Obviously it lacked content, but it had probably like some of the best quality content we had on the VR headset, but a lot of it was experiences. Obviously, probably the most notable one was the London Heist, and they pretty much took that concept and made it into a bigger full game. This game's probably like 7 hours long, continuing to get updates, and just the game overall has such a good pace to it. It's like so captivating all the way throughout. It's pretty much, think of it as like a spy, London kind of spy movie with like hints of like Uncharted into it. So like sometimes you'll have levels where you have to like climb around and then have to like see a guy and reach for your pistol and unholster your weapon while you're doing it. And just the core kind of concept of having 2 guns on your back and 2 guns on your holster and have your ammo pocket on your chest, just it makes it really feel smooth. And I'd say the only thing that holds this game back is probably like the PSVR tech itself, because this game's really good, but a lot of times the tracking can make it a little bit annoying. But yeah, if you want like a full game in VR, Blood and Truth is probably as full as it gets, and just shows you like kind of the potential for VR if like studios make full games for it, and it's definitely a must-have. It's in my probably top 5 games on PSVR, and yeah, it's definitely a must-play. Now this one is probably the game that people say online is probably like easily the fan favorite. A lot of people have this as number 1. To me, I personally don't have this as number 1, just frankly because like I like personally having first-person VR games and feeling like I am the person myself in VR. But Astrobot, you guys know me, I love platformers, so you'd probably actually think that this is my number 1 game, and this is probably actually one of my favorite platformers of all time. Yeah, so this definitely makes it in like top 5, honestly. Definitely a must-have. I actually picked this up like a month after the game initially launched last year. I only picked it up for like 20 bucks. Like, it came down in sale like really quickly, which is at the same time kind of sad. But this definitely is like a game worth buying. It's like a full platformer with like, makes it feel like kind of like the Mario 64 VR in a way, where like it changes a lot and just it has like the best use of a DualShock 4 of any game on the PS4 at the moment. And just overall, it's like one of the most charming games on PSVR, and definitely pick it up. I don't think I need to sell it because I feel like Astrobot is probably like one of the most sold PSVR games, so you probably already have this, but if you don't, pick it up. I mean, there's also a demo if you want to try it, so yeah, you gotta do that. Alright, now here are some of my like honorable mentions. So these games didn't necessarily make the top of the list, but they're pretty damn close to it, and I feel like they're worth recommending enough. So, since I just mentioned Astrobot, I guess the first honorable mention I'll mention is probably going to be Moss. Now, Moss is definitely a really good game. It's kind of short for how much it is. It's like a $30 game, but you only get like 3 hours out of it. But that being said, it's probably like one of the most detailed worlds in VR, as well as it's just really fun and really gets your head thinking. Because it does have some light puzzle solving, and it also is just a damn fun game in general. Definitely recommend Moss. It's probably like the game that didn't make this list by maybe like 1 or so. So this game is honestly, it could have a case for even showing up in like some of my favorite VR games. And yeah, I believe they also added like a free update like last month in June. So yeah, there's a lot to this game to love. Yeah, it's such a good game. I like it a lot, and definitely one of the best showcases for how like a detailed world can be in VR. My second honorable mention will be Firewall 0 Hour. Now, the only reason this probably won't be like in my favorite VR games is kind of for 2 reasons. One, it's a multiplayer game, which is really hard to kind of play because, quite frankly, it's already kind of enough effort setting up VR and having to use the aim controller. Not like you need to use the aim controller, but just kind of have like an online multiplayer game. You gotta really be in the mood for the game. And the second reason for that is just the fact that I believe they kind of keep breaking this game with like patches that come out. Like, they had like a new operation come out maybe a month or 2 ago, and it kind of broke the game for me. So yeah, sometimes the game can have some issues with it. It's not like the smoothest like a single player game will be, like half the games I mentioned already on the list. But yeah, Firewall 0 Hour, definitely worth recommending, especially if you have an aim controller. This is probably like the system seller for the aim alongside Farpoint. So yeah, Firewall 0 Hour is like the CSGO of VR. Definitely fun. You've probably seen a lot of Twitter clips from me online, and definitely recommend picking it up if you have an aim controller, like I said, and if not, definitely look it up, look into it and stuff. Again, you really gotta like multiplayer to like this game, so if you don't like multiplayer, this is a total skip. And yeah, I guess that was like my final kind of honorable mentions. I do have some other games I'm playing, but I don't really have kind of the confidence in order to like kind of already introduce them because I'm just starting to play them now. I just recently picked up Tetris Effect as well as Creed Rise to Glory, so I'm currently playing through those games now. I also do own Skyrim VR. Now Skyrim VR, I just can't get into Skyrim in general. Like I probably bought in the game like twice, once on PS3 and now on VR, and I'm like an hour into VR and hopefully it gets better, but so far, like, I like the game a lot, but it definitely is still Skyrim with like the 2D menus and stuff, and it's still just, I don't know, something about Skyrim I just never could get into. I want to get into it, but I've never been able to get into it, so yeah, I'm not going to mention that, obviously. Some other games I do want to mention I am planning on picking up are Farpoint, which is like the second game that's most notable with the aim controller. I believe you actually have to use the aim controller, I think, as well as Borderlands 2 VR. So those two games I'm looking into picking up here in the future, but I have not played yet. So I guess with that being said, that has been the end of all my favorite VR games here on PSVR. Make sure to leave your list in the comments down below, of course, to start a discussion from there. I've noticed that like a lot of people don't have VR, but the people that do have VR do have like a lot of games they own and have quite a cool list of, you know, some of their favorite games. So yeah, make sure to list that off in the comments down below. Of course, as always, I've been online. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe if you are new here and want to see more content like this on the channel. And yeah, I guess with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Take care, everyone.